So for more on how Canadians can maintain their menu at home without blowing the budget, we've reached to Zannat Reza, and she is a dietitian in Toronto, and she joins us right here in studio. Thank you for joining us today, Zannat.
Well, thank you for having me.
So first, we want to just get your initial gauge of this report. What were some of the biggest takeaways for you?
Well, for me, I thought it was interesting. They're showing that the price of fruits and vegetables will go up next year. And, you know, obviously as a dietitian, I'm going to still say fruits and vegetables are not a luxury. We still need to eat them. And when you look at the report where it shows that our food budget might be going up over $400 a year, I think the thing to keep in mind is when you look at how much food we actually waste, it's the equivalent of $1,100. So if we're looking to save money, let's first look to that food waste, which is astronomical.
So to that point that Laura was making too, maybe leftovers are one good way to go, freezing some of your food to make it last a little bit longer.
Exactly, and really thinking about when you buy your foods, like plan out when are you actually going to eat it. So if you do a huge shop and by the end of the week that, you know, those perishables, those fruits and vegetables are looking sad, well, instead of throwing it out, put it into a stew. So I think, you know, we need to look at the totality of what's going on. And, you know, my take home from this report is stay calm. This is not the end of the world.
Now, speaking of your take home, what about at your home as a professional, you know, a dietitian, when you're looking at this report and you're saying, of course, fruits and veggies are still very necessary, how will this impact your home and how you are, you know, creating those meals for your family?
Well, you know what, fruits and vegetables are still really important. And what I would recommend is if you're looking for tips to save money, what I would say is look to what's in season. So things like carrots and winter squash right now, all of these kinds of foods, cabbage, they're still affordable. It's maybe the fancier fruits and vegetables that are, you know, slightly on the higher side. Going for frozen options are definitely kind of the way to go because frozen vegetables are just as nutritious as fresh. And especially in the winter, that I think is a great way to go. The other thing that I like to do is I like to shop at discount grocery stores because you're definitely getting more bang for your buck. And, you know, we talked about sort of this push towards plant-based, and I think that really is the way to go. You know, there's the rise of flexitarianism, and in terms of the plant-based, we're seeing more and more people shifting to what I call pulses. So these are things like lentils, chickpeas, dried beans and peas. And here's a fun fact. Canada actually is one of the top producers and exporters of lentils, chickpeas, and other pulses. So I would say, you know, mix it in there. If you're cooking up a stew, throw in a can of beans, throw in some lentils. I like to do it with macaroni and cheese. You know, my kids don't even know that I hide lentils in there. And it's a wonderful way of getting that extra protein and also keeping those food costs down.
Now, you also said something interesting. You said fancy fruits. What are fancy fruits?
Well, you know, I'm talking about things that are exported, right? So we're not growing mangoes or dragon fruit. And not to say don't eat those. I'm just saying if you're mindful of your budget, this is something to think about. You know, the previous report talked about the number of people going vegetarian or veganism. But when you look at Ipsos Canada data, only 5% of the population are actually vegetarian. Most of us are, you know, adopting this flexitarianism, so eating smaller amounts of meat, and really, let's just keep it really simple, which is half your plate should be fruits and vegetables, a quarter of that some sort of protein, whether it's meat or chicken, lentils, pulses, that type of thing, and then the other quarter would be a whole grain. That really is the key to healthy eating.
I guess no question, though, it does make it more complicated for people at home. They just have to be more vigilant about everything going forward.
Yeah, exactly, and really just keeping it simple. So yes, certain fruits and vegetables might be higher in price, but let's look to better options. So what's in season? You know, potatoes are underrated, but they're quite nutritious. Things like squashes, onions even, those types of foods, carrots, they're not sexy, but they are fruit and vegetable and they're inexpensive.
All right, but people who eat meat, they don't have to necessarily switch over. You know, that's not entirely what this report is saying, and vice versa. In order to save money, you don't need to switch to meat, but you're saying flexitarianism. Do a little bit of both. It's all about balance.
It's all about balance. Like, you know, here's another tip. If you're buying chicken, and here's what I do, I personally don't like the taste of chicken breast, and chicken thighs and legs are cheaper cuts of chicken, and buy it with the bone in. So why pay someone to take that bone out? The bone actually adds a lot of flavor. So there are things that you can do. And say you're making a meat sauce, an easy way of bulking that up and saving you money is whirling in mushrooms, which are always in season, and they're really good for you, especially if you're trying to, cut down your risk of getting a cold or flu. That selenium boosts your immune system. So whirl in the mushrooms, whirl in some lentils, and again, you're bulking up the meat and you're cutting down on your costs. So simple things, simple strategies like that will help you still enjoy the great taste of meat, but also incorporate more plant-based sources.
Well, thank you for all of those helpful tips. That again was Zannat Reza, and she was joining us in studio. She's a dietitian in Toronto.